the disadvantages of psychopathy. Now, first of all, if you look at the first trait, you've got glib and superficial charm. One of the disadvantages of this is, what if you go up against another psychopath? They're going to recognize your superficiality real fast. Okay? You can't have more than... they can get along with each other, but if a psychopath is trying to con another psychopath, it can wind up in a bad situation. Also, in the social media world, having a glib and superficial charm, you might wind up being recorded. And later, some vindictive business partner or girlfriend or something like that may throw in something that shows that you were a liar all along. So that would be a very, very big disadvantage. I am going to jump into some of these other things, though, that psychopathy can be bad at. Now, the fact that psychopaths tend to question any rules put on them. They believe rules are for the weak, for the people who just have to have someone to control them. And this can, at a young age, lead them into juvenile delinquency. Okay? It can cause them to get in trouble because they're not going to see the policeman in the head, the guilt complex coming in and saying, no, this is wrong, you shouldn't do this because it's wrong. And then they just walk away when they have the temptation. They're going to try to figure out if they can get away with it. They're going to try to figure out what they should do. What will be the rewards for doing something? What could be the possible outcomes? Everything's going to be weighed on a cost-benefit analysis. And the smart one, may get away with things or not do something stupid. The less intelligent one may wind up getting in prison pretty quick and winding up someone that has attention of the juvenile delinquency departments. Okay? So this is a problem that many psychopaths have. Now, also, because they tend to lead a lifestyle that is somewhat fragmented, to say the least, they can wind up in situations in which, because of, again, the inability to feel guilt and empathy, they can do a lot of things to harm other people. So the one thing that can wind up happening is they may wind up having had many marriages that broke up, many failed relationships, and of course it's never their fault. It's someone else's fault. And this is true for both males and females. You can have a situation in which you can have a long list of, let me tell you something about him or her. Okay? So I think our society still values the idea of people having stability and having a certain sense of honor. This can actually hurt them. And it can hurt them in their personal lives. It can hurt them professionally. It can hurt them if they ever decide to run for politics. Now, then you get into the idea of irresponsibility. Now, the thing is here, you have a tendency for the person, maybe, or let's just put it again, if you don't have a very strong sense of guilt and empathy, you may have a situation in which you don't see responsibilities in the same way most people do. So if you're younger and you get a job, but yet someone says, hey, let's go do something like this, let's go, and they have this great, weekend planned at the ski resort or something, but you have to work, well, you may just call in sick, and then later, you wind up finding out that your boss is at the same ski resort, so you get fired. Now, this is something that many people have done. It doesn't take a psychopath, but a psychopath would do this quite regularly and maybe not learn the lesson. Okay, most people would learn the lesson like, now I'm having to look for another job because, I fouled up here. I'll never do that again. The psychopath will do it again and again and again and again. Okay, so that's a problem with this personality matrix. Anyway, impulsivity. Now, impulsivity is, again, just idea of doing something just at the spur of the moment. And again, it's something that a lot of people like, but at the same time, it's very dangerous. If you don't think about what can happen, if you don't look at all of what the results can be, it may wind up being something that could threaten your life. It could threaten other people. It could threaten your career. It could threaten so much. A person who, spur of the moment, decides, I'm going to use drugs, and then gets caught, even though they knew there was a good chance of getting caught. Well, maybe their goal in life was to become a teacher. And the problem is now they've got something on their record, a drug offense. Chances of becoming a teacher just went way lower. Okay? Or you have these situations where someone is, some girl who, she decides, I need some extra money, and a friend of mine, just got involved was a model and then now is in porn. No one's going to know, and I need a little extra money here and there. And then later, when they're running for mayor of some city and someone happens to notice a great resemblance between one of the actresses and the candidate for mayor, well, that's the end of that. But psychopaths are more likely to do it. Psychopaths will jump in and do the crazy, stupid thing, not really taking a serious note of what could happen. Now, again, many times, I stated in the first half of the show, they will look at things from a cost-benefit point of view. But they can let that proneness to being bored, or that sense of no one controls me, get the best of them. Very big disadvantages involved there. Now, we also have the thing about promiscuous sexual behavior. I think we can think of a lot of problems you can get with that. You may wind up paying child support, for a very long time. Or you can get a sexually transmitted disease. If you're a female psychopath, you may wind up with a baby that you have to take care of. And this can be a problem. And I would tend to think that even though psychopaths may wind up with, making more babies in the long run than non-psychopaths do, the ones that try to avoid it may not reproduce at all. So it may balance things out. The psychopaths that do wind up having, 3 wives and in the end and 6 children, balance out with the psychopath that never had any children whatsoever. I will note here, when it comes to promiscuity, that female psychopaths are much more likely to use sex as a means of getting somewhere than male psychopaths will. And as I show in my books, the Freedom from Conscience books, the female psychopath is someone who is often admires someone based on a idea, is on a something that they find beyond emotion. So they might like the idea that someone is smarter than them, and they're really attracted to that. But they also, one thing that has to be noted, is a certain level of, I'll use the old term. Nowadays there's so many different terms for, sexual orientations. But basically the old term ambisexuality, which basically is kind of like pansexuality, or it just basically means that the female psychopath tends to be someone who, doesn't let sexual orientation stand in the way. Let's just put it that way. Males can be that way, a little bit more likely than the non-psychopath, but the females very much so. And that's something, again, I incorporate in the Freedom from Conscience books. Now, the irresponsibility idea, the idea that you could wind up falling behind on your bills, you don't show up to work, you think you're too good for a certain job, so you're basically trying to run away, keeping the door locked when the landlord comes by, after you've gone 6 months without paying rent, and that sort of thing. That is a problem. That is a problem many do have. And again, not all. Some have very strong planning abilities and a sense that they don't want to wind up dependent on other people. But very often, especially when they're younger, they have a harder time dealing with the mundane aspects of human existence. So therefore, they have some problems there. Now, poor behavior controls. Now, this is something that's, again, is going to range according to the psychopath. One psychopath might be if their husband's cheating on them, she might, there's a variety of things she could do. She might go and seduce the husband of the woman who's cheating with her husband just to make a point. She might cut the brakes on the lady's car. She might just try to ruin the person socially in some way. Or go after him if it doesn't hurt her position. So the behavior controls, again, that would be more the smarter, cunning psychopath. The less intelligent psychopath, let's say she might just go and wind up in a knife fight with the woman who's cheating on her husband. Or she might just poison her husband or something like that. Never mind the consequences. So that's something you have to take a look at there. And so, again, you're talking about, I think the core issues are the lack of guilt and empathy that gets into this. And all the other positive factors that come in, which, too much of a positive thing, like if someone's really good looking or really charming, can actually be a negative thing in many other respects. Now, the parasitic lifestyle. Like I said, there are psychopaths. I've read about some who, let's say a guy is not even, he's not really considered, he's never really been with a man or something like that, but he might actually consider living in a gay relationship with someone who's very wealthy or very powerful, or as a stepping stone to get to a better position. So this is this kind of parasitic lifestyle, letting someone else take care of you, letting other people do your work for you. So you have a work situation where you've got someone who gets all the credit but really doesn't do anything. That's parasitic, and it can be it can really be a problem for the people that do the work. Or you come up with ideas and they take credit for them. Again, that's a type of parasitic lifestyle. But ultimately, this is something that is another disadvantage that the manipulation aspects do bring in. It makes it too easy. Most people would have too much guilt to be that manipulative. Now again, the lack of empathy can cause a person to not be able to really form long-lasting relationships with someone. So it winds up in a situation in which maybe they're only with them for a reason. And then when that reason's over, they're over. And the idea that that would go against most people's ideas of, well, you don't treat people that way. Hardcore psychopaths, they are much more likely to have this. Again, in fairness, there are many psychopaths that have been raised with a very strong code of ethics, so to speak, so they would never do something wrong. Or they may be very religious. But the idea that they could, that they have this empathy, that they can tap into their spouse or their girlfriend or their boyfriend or their best friend or whatever's mind and kind of walk in their shoes does not exist. So it could be cold empathy, which is a kind of sympathy where, something goes wrong. The psychopath might be like, well, that really sucks that happened to you. But they don't feel it. It's kind of that, oh, that's bad. Kind of like when you look at the news and you have absolutely no connection to a person that, I don't know, you find out something bad happened to them out in a country far, far away. You feel like, oh, that's kind of bad that happened. I was just reading an article about some fire that killed a whole bunch of people in Portugal. You don't know who they are. You don't see their faces. You just read that, it's a statistic. That's the way a psychopath will feel, in all aspects of life. Okay? Most people, when they see a face, when they see a person, when they know a person, they do feel. But psychopaths don't have that empathy. So that's a problem. It may actually cut back on their ability to experience the joys of love and bonding and connectiveness. And then it gets into the shallow effect. Again, they may come across as cold because they don't have those strong connecting feelings. And that's a big problem for them. They may not feel it, and they may wonder, why is it that this person cries when they get, their daughter's getting married, and they're crying and just with joy, and they're like, I don't get this. Okay? Because they don't get it. And, that's a limitation on being a human being. The idea of being prone to boredom. This gets psychopaths in trouble a lot because they're always trying to figure out something that will give them a thrill. Well, maybe the thrill is cheating with, again, we go back to that example, cheating with their best friend's wife. Or the thrill is stealing something or committing some sort of crime or any number of things. Whereas most people would think, why wasn't that person content? They had a good life. Why did they go ahead and jeopardize it by doing this, this, and this? A lot of times our politicians, if anyone's in the public eye, it's a politician. And you're wondering, why did this politician, why did he go in and, proposition a guy in a bathroom? Or why did this politician, why was he dating 3 different women, and cheating on his wife? Or why did this politician do such and such on the internet? I mean, why would they do such a thing, you think to yourself? Well, maybe it is the fact that they want that thrill. They don't like to be bored. And you add all the other factors in, and, well, you've got yourself a dangerous mix. And then, we get into that grandiose self-worth. Think about what it must feel like for the average psychopath who does not realize their dreams. Maybe the average psychopath wants to be the president or the prime minister or the king or any number of things. Well, most of them won't make it. So therefore, many of them are going to be living in some sort of fantasy world in which they're thinking, what if I'd just done this? What if I'd have just done this? What if my life had been better? What if I could have married a different person? Or what if I could have gone into a different career? Or what if? And they're going to feel like the world cheated them. Okay? It's not going to be because of their characteristics. It's going to be that the world cheated them. And while most people will find a contentment and think, okay, I've lived a pretty nice life, I've, raised my kids right, and I got a home, and, and, I've never been hungry or anything like that, the psychopath is going to be thinking, I should have been king. I should have been the ruler. I should have been this and the most powerful ever. And you see this with the megalomania, the ones that do become successful, and they just want more power or more money or more influence. Anyone that gets in their way, they just want to stomp on them. When you're thinking, why would this person who has all of this going for them want to crush the people around them when it doesn't do them any good? Well, many times it's just because they can, and it gives them a thrill. And, so they take advantage of the situation. So anyway, we're running short on time here. I hope that you've learned something here. If you have any comments, just leave them down in the comment section if you're on chat right now, or put them into the messenger section on the bottom if it's on YouTube later. Yes, there are a lot of positive things about psychopathy, for the person, advantages, and there's a lot of negatives that come into this too. And like I said before, it's a double-edged sword. So when you're looking at your politicians or your media people on TV and actors and actresses and so forth, just remember, not everything's great for a psychopath. Anyway, you all take care now, and I hope you'll tune in next week for another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCYT Productions.